for spelling my name differently. So what I'm saying, essentially, Commissioner, these are deeply embedded in our society, and we need to. I think the respect for age is great also, but we must begin to challenge one another. Maslabi dafa bari. Maslabi is just too much. We have to speak truth to one another and speak truth to power, more importantly. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Carr.
Thank you, Chairman. I have a couple of questions. Professor, thank you firstly for the brilliant lecture. We enjoyed it and we learned a lot. My first question has to do with the tendency of our leaders to overstay in power, starting from Jawara, who stayed, I believe, for 30 years in power. Then we had Jammeh for 22 years. In your research, did you find out any reasons as to why that is the case?
Thank you, Commissioner Carr. You know, power is sweet. And whoever tells you that they want to stay for just a short time, well, including our current president, is fooling us. You become accustomed to a particular lifestyle. Life relatively is easier than it used to be. You are to some degree addicted to the push, the finance, and the pump of the situations. And really, most people can just have enough of that. It takes a really principled person to honor and not overstay their service to the country. Sadada, without everybody, well, most people know my relationship and my love for Sadada. And I do believe he too overstayed. And in his case, I could come up with justifications, but I believe he also was taken by the pump, the circumstances, and the panache to some degree, although very modest man he was. Yeah, Jammeh stayed because, as I was saying earlier, I just wanted to be in the limelight. Yahya would not have anybody else's sun shine where he was present. It was all about him. This is the narcissistic tendency in Yahya Jammeh. It was about him and him alone, and everything was about him. And after all the atrocities that he committed, part of the reason why he wanted to stay much longer was to really protect himself and to stay in the country longer. Well, now we know where he is. That's something he tried to avoid for as much as he could. Thank you, Commissioner Carr.
The second is, you have been an academic activist for long, and we know in societies all over the world, academics play a great role. I should say academic activists play a great role in enhancing a culture of democracy, accountability, and good governance. How do you think we can enhance that in this country?
That's a difficult question, but I'll try. I think the question that Commissioner Kinte raised could be a good start. Questioning, challenging authority, and not accepting something just because it is said by an authority. And I think one way of doing that is to begin at home and the schools, to provide students and children thinking skills, critical thinking and learning skills, to weigh information, to make critical assessment of information, and not rote learning, and in the process come to some conclusion of their own. Well, I have been blessed. I was brought up in the same context as most of you, although at an earlier time. But I guess my education also helped. Being in the U.S. and being exposed to so much and being an activist, even as an undergraduate student, having a professor who mentored me, and questions of social justice, I think imbued me with my activism. So I didn't say much about it in these hearings, but among others, including Sol Menga, Koto, Saine, and a host, Habib, and a lot of people in Atlanta, in Washington, D.C., and my sister and auntie, Adele Sose, we marched the streets. In fact, in Washington, D.C., the last demonstrations we had against Yahya Jammeh, he couldn't come out of his hotel. He had to be smuggled out. And I say all that to say that my activism, political activism, informs my scholarship, and my scholarship in turn informs my activism. They fuel me both. At one point I was just saying, well, let me just write and write and write. But when they killed the kids on April 10th and 11th was when I said it wasn't enough just to write. And then I became a dissident. And like many others, what I suffered compares to nothing that the things you've heard in this commission, nothing. It doesn't compare. But many of my colleagues couldn't come home for 22 years. Many of them lost family and friends and couldn't come pay their last respects. But I can go on and on. Thank you, Commissioner Kerr.
Final question.
Final question, okay.
Yes. This is linked to Jammeh's hate for demonstrations, for anything that challenged him in public. But recently we saw he was in some way trying to use demonstration to rally
yes.
his political base. Would you say that is also one of his contradictions?
Yes, it certainly is. Inspiring his APRC militants, he is, to say the least, very crafty. He is very strategic in his thinking. And he will use something good for bad purposes. That is quintessential Yahya Jammeh. I must say I've never met him. I shook his hand once at a reception with my old friend, Mamadou Musa Seka, late, from high school all the way, and I miss him terribly. He introduced me to him. But everything I've said about him really is not firsthand. I don't know him.
Thank you, Bishop. And then I'll turn to the commissioners on the left.
Thank you, Chairman. Professor, thank you so much for the wonderful expose. Now, the thing is, we have heard here in one of our hearings that Yahya was not one of the original coup plotters. Rather, he was invited. Now, what is difficult to understand is how come that Yahya, became a dominant factor. He dominated everybody else, the military, the police, religious leaders, everybody else, he dominated them. How come that he was able to do that as an individual person?
Yes. Commissioner Adiko, that's a difficult question too. But I would propose that Jammeh knew how to manipulate. He knew how to manipulate the members of the council to the degree that they would bestow or restore some respect as well as confidence in him. He, at the beginning, was really a very affable, likable person and could be very convincing and likable. But I guess as he gained more power and prestige and money, those things went into his head. And then he became increasingly more repressive. And in doing so, eliminated practically all those who were in the council in an effort to consolidate himself. So a combination of charm, repression, and brute force combined may explain to some degree how he rose to the top and kept himself there for 22 years. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Imam, you have the floor, please.
Professor Saine, I would like first of all to thank you for the brilliant lecture, but more importantly, for the way you have exposed all that happened in this country for the last 22 years.
Thank you, sir.
Our task, part of our task here, is to reconcile this nation in the light of all the atrocities that have been committed. But the perpetrators of these evil acts are still amongst us, and they are jumping the streets of Banjul and the Kombos, shouting that Yaya will come back, Yaya has to come back, he has to come back. What advice would you give the government and us, the Commission, to handle this situation, to ensure that we are able to create the atmosphere and the opportunity for reconciliation? Thank you.
Thank you, Imam. How can we go about rebuilding this country through reconciliation, making sure that each citizen and group and political party enjoy fundamental human rights? It is a very slippery slope, to say the least. One thing I would suggest, Imam, is to have dialogue, open dialogue between contending political parties, even rivals. Create a forum, a political space where all these contending forces can be brought to a table to discuss and hopefully come to some resolution about the way forward. Interfaith dialogue is another conflict that needs to be resolved in our country. And for this, I'm also suggesting that we have the faith houses and personnel, clergy, imam, to bring about some sort of discussion surrounding the tense religious environment that we currently live in. The more we open the political space, my thinking is, the more tolerance we engender in our discussions, being able to listen to one another without being defensive. I think that would augur well for reconciliation, forgiveness, and possibly restitution in this country of ours. Because really, we are fundamentally a good people, a religious people. We are family, we are one nation. You hurt somebody in one family, you are really hurting yourself. You criticize another ethnic group, you are criticizing yourself. You threaten somebody, you threaten us all. So I think there are mechanisms of openness, of dialogue, and that lack of dogmatism, that my way is the only way, that I think really shuts off any possibilities for discussion, reconciliation in the future. Tolerance. And I think what is good about tolerance and a so-called liberal arts education, which I think we must imbue at the UTG, is the ability to to listen to somebody, even if you disagree with what they say, and possibly learn something from them. And I think if we can instill those thinking skills in our schools, in our families, and not shut off our kids when they have something to say, I think we can begin to engender this life of tolerance. I guess I'm saying this because I come from a tradition, scholarly tradition, where we can disagree to disagree, and so forth and so on. Thanks. Thank you, Imam. I think that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you very much. Deputy Chair, you have the floor, and then Imam C. Deputy Chair. No, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, Doctor, for a very illuminative 2 days. In a way, your response to Imam C's question has partly answered what I want to say. And this is in reference to the point you made about the historical discrimination against the Jolas. Other minority ethnic groups have also claimed such discrimination,
yes,
and used this as a justification for their unflinching support for Jammeh. My question is, was this discrimination intentional? A deliberate attempt by state institutions and by society as a whole to exclude, to marginalize, or to domesticate certain groups of people? Or was it unintentional, cognizant of the fact that discrimination in any shape or form, whether intentional or intentional, is still discrimination and a violation of someone's human rights? But Commissioner Kinte, also touched on that. Our beliefs, our biases, and prejudices and practices can perpetuate such discrimination, supported in part by the tacit cooperation of the persons being discriminated against, as we had in the case of the Jolas, who for some reason preferred to maintain their own distinct culture and lifestyle, and also in the case of the caste system, which is now being questioned. How do we as a nation change these mindsets so that these discriminatory practices that you have highlighted so succinctly in your paper, based on ethnic, religious, caste, socioeconomic status, and gender, can be dissipated to break the deep divides that are threatening the peace, stability, and unity of our country?
That is a very difficult question, Commissioner Source. And if I really knew the answer, I think I could probably write it and sell it in a book. But it is a difficult question. But let me propose this. I am not very sure about your categorization of intentional and unintentional discrimination. I respect your view. You see, societies are organized along lines of privilege built on a reward system. And the powers that be will determine who gets rewarded, how much, and those that are excluded, based sometimes on very flimsy reasons. Blacks in America, the ideology says, are lazy, they don't want to work. Women are similarly lazy, they talk a lot, this is the ideology. And these become the myth around which discrimination or forms of discrimination are built. what that does is it enables those in power to control the resources and their distribution and channel those resources to those that they prefer or privilege. So yes, I agree with you that some forms of discrimination may be conscious or unconscious. And that is the ideology that underpins it. But at the end of the day, I do believe that discrimination, whatever form it takes, is intentional. And it is couched, justified, rationalized by the use of myth, all of you nilañ mel, or jola nilañ mel, blacks are like this, Mexicans are like this, and you use those phenotype or phenotypical differences as a means of discriminating against them. There's nothing wrong with who they are, but those characteristics become problematized and the basis of discrimination. How can we go about resolving some of this? Equal opportunity for each young girl, boy, they physically, let me say that in another way, the differently abled should also be given this opportunity because they are also highly discriminated peoples or groups. There should be an unyielding principle to treat each and everyone equally, regardless of religion. This is a principle. It's not going to happen in the next 10 or 15 years. I believe we're going to work toward it. And over time, accomplish some of it. It is never going to be a perfect, but I think it can get better. I think it can get better. I think women today, and I have no data to support that, may be doing better today, possibly, than maybe they did 50, 60 years ago. It's a gradual process. I don't know. It's a difficult question, but that's the best I can do for now. Yeah.
Actually, I'm quite satisfied with the answer because
Thank you.
It's a basis for us to step up whatever we're doing.
I appreciate it.
But to also now take on your last point about women, the best laws for women really were passed on the Jammeh. Just to buttress what you were saying.
Yes.
He did some very good things and he did some very bad things. The National Women's Act, which we are very proud of, was passed under him.
Absolutely.
The ban on FGM was also passed. Early marriage, the ban against early marriage was also passed.
Yes.
Domestic violence also. So very good laws have come out, but unfortunately, we lack the implementation. There are huge gaps between the acts and the policies and the practices. But at the same time, having passed those brilliant laws for women, women really suffered under the Jammeh regime. They were brutalized. As you have said in your paper, they were raped, they were tortured, they were imprisoned. So on one hand, he was doing good for the women. On the other hand, he was doing a lot of harm for the women.
Absolutely.
But the women now have the tools that can enable them
Yes.
to play their rightful roles in society. And it is now up to us to insist on the implementation.
Absolutely.
Thank you once again
Thank you.
for a brilliant 2 days.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Sose.
Thank you. Imam C, have the floor.
Professor Saine maa ngi lay nuyu di la gërëm.
Fay naa la si jërëjëf.
Jërëjëf ci wax bi nga wax nii. Dafa am li may laaj.
Professor Saine, my sincere thanks to you, and I want to ask you a question.
Yaya Jammeh ni mu buggee woon nguur ak doole.
Yaya Jammeh, how he loved power and ruling the people,
ak ni mu buggee woon tur.
and how he wants to his name.
Su fekkente ne léegi waajuram.
Had it been that now his parents,
wala jabaram,
or wife,
wala doomam,
or his children,
ànduñ ci moom ci loolu li mooy def.
were not in line with what he was doing,
li mooy def ñoom seen xelaat bokku ci.
or what he was doing was not part of their thinking.
noo gisee naka lay mujjee ak ñoom.
How did you see his end with them? How was he going to end up with them?
Imam jërëjëf ci laajte bi nga laajte.
Thanks for the question, Imam.
xam nga ñëpp xam nañ ne Yaya Jammeh dafa dëgër boppa.
All people knew that Yaya Jammeh was a strong-headed person.
Yaya Jammeh du déglu kenn.
He doesn't listen to anybody.
Yaayam sax dégg na daf ko daan saaga.
He said he used to insult his own mother.
Saagatuma jabaram.
Especially his wife.
Yaya Jammeh ci waxtaan bi ma def tey ak démba.
The discussion I did here yesterday and today.
li ma wane mooy.
What I showed here was
Yaya Jammeh moom affaire am.
Yaya Jammeh, his affairs.
Dinga ko mën a wax tey ba ëllëg.
We can talk about it from today to tomorrow.
waaye ci gàttal rek.
But to cut it short,
Yaya du déglu.
Yaya doesn't listen.
Yaya bu déglu woon.
If he had listened,
li xew fii ñaar fukki at ak ñaar.
what happened or what transpired here in these 22 years of his rule
du fi xew.
would not have happened.
bu amoon ñoo xam ne dañ ko waxal ni yaay mu déglu yaayam.
If people were there who were giving him good advice, like even his mother
ak sa jabar.
and his wife,
nga xam ne lépp ngeen seexoo.
and whatever is between you and them,
dina doon war a déglu.
he would have listened.
Yaya dëkk yi nekk bitim réew.
The countries, the other countries,
wax nañ ŋàññ nañ ko.
criticized him.
United Nations ŋàññ nañ ko.
United Nations criticized him.
EU ŋàññ nañ ko.
European Union criticized him.
waaye ba tey.
But up to date,
Yaya dégluwul kenn.
Yaya wouldn't listen to anybody.
ñi ko gën a jege sax.
Even people closer to him.
si nga xam ne mënuñ koo defar mënuñ koo wecc xalaatam ak definam ak doxinam.
People who had the powers to change his thoughts and his deeds.
waakirlu rek àndaa moom.
Well, just decided to go along with him.
waaye nekkul ne seen coobare la loolu lañ bëgg a def.
But it was not their will to go along with him like that.
waaw Imam man noonu laa ko gisee.
Imam, that's how I saw things.
waaw jërëjëf.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Saine. If you have any closing remarks to make, please go ahead and do so now.
Well, I want to take this occasion to say how very grateful, humbled, and touched I am by this invitation. I have lectured, presented papers at conferences throughout the world, but this occasion here is the biggest and most gratifying platform I have been on. And that is because much of my academic work and activism has been focused on Gambia. I have given other lectures in Gambia, public lectures, but this compares to none of them. I was gratified and still gratified by the fact that I can share my work with a country that gave me so much. Coming from rural Gambia in those difficult days of the 1960s, I had a scholarship from Kuntore Area Council. My parents couldn't afford the school fees. And I went to Armitage, and then to Udom College. And as they say, the rest is history. So I owe this country. And I'm glad I was able to come and be part of these deliberations. And I want to thank the whole nation for being with us for the last 2 days. And I'm sure I might have said some things very bluntly that might have offended some. But that is the nature of my scholarship and being an activist. But I thank you nonetheless. I also want to thank, because in the process of writing this commission report, I have incurred numerous debts and gratitudes to many individuals and institutions. Of course, my department and university for giving me a 9th-month sabbatical. But I also want to thank the TRRC lead counsel, Esa Fall. I owe him a big debt of gratitude for his probing prompts and questions, his kind comments and suggestions, which undoubtedly improved the quality of this report. I have also incurred debts of gratitude to the former Assistant Legal Counsel, Haraja Balagay, either persons of the UNDP and their staff for their encouragement and support. To my former colleague, Dr. Baba Gala Jallo, the TRRC Executive Secretary, I also owe a big thank you for your support, unflinching support, on this project and certainly many other projects. Baba contributed a chapter on Guinea on one of the edited volumes I did several years ago. The guy who was going to do the piece on Guinea all of a sudden dropped the project, and I was scurrying for somebody who could do it. And I called Baba, and he wrote a brilliant piece. So Baba, thank you for those many years of collaboration. I also wish to give thanks to a colleague, and certainly all my colleagues, whose work have impacted me in Bible scholarship. I also want to thank Dr. Ibrahim Sise, a friend, a colleague, a younger brother, who really did a very good job. You think I did a good job on this? Ibrahim helped quite a bit in doing so too, and I must give him credit. He is one of those young, energetic, scholars, for which I am very grateful. And I will be remiss if I do not include Dr. Lamin B. Sise of the TRRC, the chairman, for mentoring me and countless other students at Armitage in the 1960s. Lamin's passion for scholarly discipline, hard work, and fairness helped shape the formative years of numerous students at Armitage and many, many others in his career. His friends, the now Alhaji Mahmoud Jany was my alcalo at Grey Kunda, and I owe a debt of gratitude to Mahmoud Jany. Ndarao Suso, Ibrahim Suso. I was a little tot when I went to Armitage, and he took me under his wing. And now he's late, but I will be ever grateful to you, Karanta Bojang, for teaching us, even though we didn't like it at the time, for punishing us. I would never thank anybody for punishing me. But you punished us. You showed us the way. You showed us discipline, punctuality. If you came to the diary hall late, Karanta Bojang was sure to send you away, and you would miss your meal for the time. I think Habib Choi, my old friend, classmate at Armitage and Yundum College, would testify to that. So would my Koto Sainifai. So we thank you and many others. But I've also been mentored and taught by the best at Armitage, at Yundum College. And I want to pay homage, particular homage to my friend, and teacher Omar C., who is now late, who made it possible for me to go to the United States to study. And I am eternally grateful to him. I also had a teacher, and still have a teacher, George Thomas they call him. And Georgie mentored me, inspired my love for literature. And in fact, when I was writing this book, he happened to be visiting in the United States. Georgie picked him up from Atlanta, came to the house in Ohio, and he went through the entire manuscript, editing it. So to many people like these, and my teachers at Hermitage, so many of them, the Usman Daus, the Nyanko Njais, the Saim Kintes, I mean, I'll be mistaken if I call them all, the E.T. Jangs, the J.J. Ndaus, all of them, I am so grateful. There is one person, though, I must single out also, Miss Jane Garlic. I don't know how many of you, well, maybe you guys, Mrs. Sose, Mr. Jallo, and Lamin would know, and of course, Habib. My passion for writing was honed in Miss Garlic's classes. That's when I began to write. You're talking about 40-something years ago. And at the time, I was going to be a novelist. But gave it up for political science when I went to the States. So literature remains my first love. So I want to really thank my former teachers at Kawur School, Hermitage High, Yundum College. They were the best of role models. They were the best anybody could have hoped for. They sowed the seeds in me to excel. To my family and friends who have been very supportive in Gambia and those in the United States and really throughout the world, so that their collective influence is something that has sustained me over the years. Commissioners, I thank you. I thank you for your hard work. I thank you for your forbearance. I thank you for having to go through those testimonies, because watching those testimonies on TV in the comfort of my home rendered me sleepless many, many nights. Lead counsel to your staff and the entire staff of TRRC, I am eternally grateful for this opportunity and look forward to maybe coming back at some other point. Thank you so much. Thank you, the audience.
Thank you very much indeed, Professor Saine. The pleasure is really ours that you agree to come and enlighten us, as I said earlier, on what happened in this country. Thank you very much. Very brilliant report you've given, and a brilliant testimony here during this past 2 days. We really appreciate it very much. And thank you for your kind words on your Hermitage days. Hermitage was, and it still is, the best high school in the world.
I think so.
St. Augustine's guys can say whatever they want to say. And Gambia High School as well. But Hermitage still is #1 high school in the Gambia.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you again very much indeed for coming to share your views with the Commission.
Thank you.
We will take a break, or we'll close for the day and resume our proceedings tomorrow, 10 o'clock in the morning. Council, do you have any? You don't have any witness hiding in the back that
no,
we can bring?
Only that I am surprised.
About
Mr. Saine looking 40, telling us that these things happened over 40 years ago. But that said...
I am 68 years old. I'm not ashamed to say. 68 years old.
But absolutely, but he hasn't changed one bit from those Armitage days.
I can imagine.
Very brilliant young kid running around.
Lamin is very kind.
But again, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much indeed, for coming, and we will meet tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all. Thank you.
ñoo ñëw ak yéen rek skincare plus nara jàkkaarloo ak yéen waxtaan ak yéen tuuti rek si suñu tube suñu baax emuñ rek ci ay diw waaye comme ni ngeen ko xamee rek dañoo yëngu ci ay tube te yënguwuñ nag si just any tube suñ tube bu nekk 5-star Jesna la 5-star Jesna mooy Jesna bi gën a pire moom la ñoo tube palmaan bi gën a fort moom la ñoo liggéeyee buñ demee Bamako ñun duñ dem ci marché bi rek buub indi déedéet dañ leen a jox suñu specs ne lañ nii lañ ko buggee nay lañ ko buggee fóot bi nangami fóot lañ bugga pour mu mun a set waaw cuubi skincare déedéet doo ko sol mu di la taxa all over the place ci gàttal ñun rek si cuub dara du doy day des not only dañoo cuub but bu la neexee ñu cuubal la ba pare nag ñawal la ñaw fi mu gën a setee nag rek la ñoo fulee ñetti ñawkat lañ am nañ ñawkati simple nga xam ne xoppati rek mbaa def sa taille basse def sa dagit def sa roba amul benn dawme am nañ koo xam ne moo ñoo dawme jigéen den am nañ tamit special ñawkat boo xam ne ñawi góor rek la ñoo defal nga bugg sa his and hers muy korité muy tobaski mbaa muy ngénte muy takka mbaa nga bugg rek def sa yëkka bu baax a baax daagul ba ñëw skincare plus ñu dimbali la tànnal la cuub fam gën a baaxee ndax sa yëkka gën a foor lii nga ne lan xoolal bi takka la skincare fii la fu léegi yéen tey we're not all about skin we are skin care and the plus does come in so many different ways Cubantu wuñ de dañ cub bam saf saf